many more years out of this one. This one is also a 2020. So in its 4 years, it's actually had less than 1,000 hours per year on it as well.
This is from Cat, and it'll have a warranty on it as well?
Yes, we did ask them to quote us the additional extra warranty, and it is included.
I get a motion on the side?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Got a first and a second to purchase the front end loader. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Okay. Thank
Motion
you.
carried. Back up, Joey.
Thank you, Chairman. First item up will be a request to rezone 1.84 acres from agricultural forestry to single-family residential. This property is located in District 1 at 5479 Horsestamp Church Road. Planning Commission recommends approval on this.
Can I get a motion on the side?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second. Got a first and second to approve this rezoning. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried. All right, next item.
Next item up is a request to rezone 2.71 acres from agricultural forestry to single-family residential. This property is located in District 2 on Gowan Circle. Planning Commission recommends approval.
I get a motion on the side?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Got a first and second to approve this rezoning. Any discussion? All in favor? Next one.
Next item up will be a request to rezone 1.72 acres from agricultural forestry to medium-density residential, which is an R2 zoning. This property is located in District 5 on Simpson Road. Planning Commission recommends approval.
I'll make a motion, we approve this zoning.
Second.
The first and second to grant this rezoning. All any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, George. Okay, Matt.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight I bring forward in front of you the change orders 5 through 8 for B. James Construction for Phase 2 of the Resiliency Center. The total for this one will actually end up with a credit of $25,115 back to the county. With these change orders, we've completed the demolition of the Phase 2 of the Resiliency Center and started building back already. These change orders will encompass additional renovations of some plumbing issues that we found during the demolition with the women's restroom and the electrical component building back in for Georgia Power for both phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2. This also removes the backup 911 center from Phase 2, since we moved it to the substation. We removed all the additional electrical backup requirements for that out of there, which is why we're getting this credit back. We recommend approval for change orders 5 through 8 for Resiliency Center Phase 2.
Can I get a motion on this item?
Motion to approve as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
First and second to approve the change order. Any discussion?
We did repair the plumbing issue, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so the change order 4 was actually for the men's room plumbing issue. This change order 5 is actually for the women's restroom.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Brings us to the appointment of the Coastal Workforce Development Board of Directors. I'll make a nomination that we appoint James Coughlin to this board.
Myself.
Got a first and second to appoint Mr. Coughlin. All those in favor? Motion carried. Brings us to resolution for dissolving the Camden County Spaceport Authority. I get a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it. This is to dissolve the Camden County Spaceport Authority. Mr. Reddick and And I, didn't vote in favor of this to begin with. So I don't have a problem getting rid of it. So we got a first and second to dissolve it. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? All unanimous? Good deal. It brings us to the gun range noise abatement solution. We've got a quote from a company to do a sound study. If that's what we want to do, I don't know. The price will range between 55,000 and 70,000. Anybody want to make a motion on this?
Make a motion to accept it with discussion.
Second.
All right, we have first and second. We'll open it up for discussion.
I had a few questions. Number one, I just read this, so it's kind of coming off the cuff here. With Ricky's deal, he gave us, basically, we're looking at loudness, pitch, and impulse. All right, how often are these tests going to be done? Are they permanent, temporary testing equipment? Because what it said over here, what I saw was basically they're going to use people and be in different locations at different times to do different things. And to me, if you're going to do this, and I think we need to set something up that's basically permanent. I mean, I'm okay with a quarter of a mile or whatever that is, but I think it needs to be a permanent fixture for a while in order to evaluate it. If not, this 70,000 doesn't include labor, so you're still going to have to pay someone to go out there and do these things.
So to, I guess, loop in the audience, and the citizens, as far as what this proposal is, could we have somebody read through it looks like a 3-part study and kind of go through what each of those are?
You want to read it out?
Can you read?
I think so.
Okay.
It looks like part 1 is the baseline measurements of existing ambient sound levels. So that's to take the baseline ambient sound level measurements for about 1 week at 2 neighbors' homes or somewhere nearby. We often take measurements at 3 or 4 locations to get a reasonable profile of ambient sounds at key locations. The proposed cost could include up to 4 locations if desired. So I would just make a note that we at least include the 2 closest residential locations, around that. Part 2 would be a live fire exercise, which would be conducted on site for about half a day. We would then set up a sequence of fire to represent a typical day or heavy use day at the range with people firing weapons, ammunition, number of shooters, etc., selected in conjunction with your office. We would measure the sounds at locations quarter mile, half mile, 1 mile, up to 3 or 4 miles from the range in each cardinal direction. We would then require assistance from the range with staff or members to fire weapons on direction from one of our consultants. Each edition, we would need some staff to man sound level meters. We provide sound meters we provide to document cars passing, birds chirping, and other sounds in addition to gunshots that could occur during the measurmental period. The cost for the staff to participate, shooters, weapons, ammunition, are not included in the proposal and would be provided by others, i.e. not by our firm. Part 3 would be computer model studies. We would build a 3-dimensional computer model of the range, the surrounding woods, topography, homes, etc., and populate it into 2 or 3 shooting scenarios of shooters, weapons, etc., and project sounds from the range to surrounding areas for the range as it currently exists. Then we would run 4 to 6 alternative weather conditions to see how wind, speed, direction, temperature, and humidity affect sound to remote locations. We would then add noise mitigation features to the range and see how they would affect sound at the affected locations. These may include adding additional heights to the berms, constructing sheds over the firing lines, adding ballistic walls, and other items to quantify potential sound reductions at affected locations. And then finally, deliver a report. We would prepare a report of the findings and submit it to the county for review and discussion. The cost of this scope of work would be approximately $55,000 to $70,000. And it looks like they would need a little bit more time to discuss logistics with people in their office and fine tune a specific scope and fee. We could also entertain other ideas to strategically reduce the scope of work if needed.
Okay.
So,
Sean, you got anything to add to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I had can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a conversation with the company today at length, and one of the things that they mentioned, and I know Commissioner Turner was mentioning, doing like a permanent type thing. And I think if you did it a fixture anywhere at any location, the number is going to be significantly more than what you're seeing now, especially if we've got a company monitoring that. But he did tell me that, they could do like a full week's worth of study. And I think each one of these tasks are slightly different, right? So, task one is kind of just, having those stations put up, monitoring the sound levels throughout a full week. Task two would be doing the live fire exercise. And then obviously task three is a computer-based model. This company has done extensive work with ranges, both military and state. So they've done some specialty work for Paris Island as well as Camp Lejeune. They've also done another range in Georgia, Union County, developed a range similar to ours that was DNR funded. So DNR is very familiar with this group as well as the military, and I think they're in the closest proximity to us. They're out of Gainesville, Florida. But with that, I mean, again, I do think that we probably need to fine tune some of the scope here. That was just something that, I mean, we literally just had the opportunity to connect with them very recently. So I just received that quote this afternoon and was able to provide it for you before tonight's meeting. So there may need to be some more discussion about this. I think, depending upon what you all want us to do, we will look for your direction and then move forward from that.
How much time do you need to fine tune it?
Probably no more than a week. I mean, I think we can probably have everything fine tuned and have everything put together for the next meeting if that's what y'all would like.
Okay.
I think if y'all want, I think if y'all want to give us some more parameters on maybe what y'all are looking for from this, just be mindful that, the more you add, the higher that number is going to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of observations.
Okay.
When he's talking about item number 3 under part 1, measure the sound at locations a quarter to a half mile up to 1 to 3 or 4 miles from the range. Does anyone recall or know what the distance from Mr. Manning's residence is?
3 miles.
3 miles, so it's within the scope of that. Second question is, and I discussed this very briefly with Mr. Boatwright this afternoon. It appears, I'm an old volunteer fireman, and you put the water on the fire. Would it be possible for Mr. Manning to be allowed to accompany and observe the process and maybe to some degree contribute to it so that he, from the fundamental level, gets questions answered and perhaps we can address things and head them off on the fly as it develops. And the third question I have under item number 8, second sentence, these may include adding additional height to the berms, constructing sheds. Is that within the estimate of $55,000 to $70,000, or is that additional?
That would be
Yeah,
an
so that would all be additional. So those would just be recommendations that, that they possibly could make, depending upon what their findings are.
So I think they're talking about adding those additions in the computer model studies to then predict what those features would potentially reduce in the
Mitigation effects of those individual items. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's probably worth noting too that, observing and going around the state, looking at all of the other ranges around us and even down in Florida, our berms are some of the tallest I've seen.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just want that to kind of be noted. I mean, I think the pistol range berm, the back berm is about, 22, 24 feet. And then the rifle range back berm is closer to 30. And the side berms are all right around 15 feet.
Sean, do you know which of the berms is it the shorter ones or the taller ones that are line of sight from the range to Mr. Manning's home?
When you say line of sight, are you talking from the shooting position, or are you just talking like if I was to, turn? I mean, I think to kind of help answer that, the pistol range berm is facing almost due north, and then the rifle range, that's the direction in which you're shooting, and then the rifle range berm is kind of more of like a northeast slant. So I mean, if you were looking at like a 360-degree circle, you're probably around that 20 to 30-degree angle, maybe even closer to 45. I mean, I'm just kind of going off in my head here.
Okay, so my estimation of it would be that the noise occurs right at the end of the muzzle, and from either pistol or long gun shooting, which direction is Mr. Manning's home in relation to the taller of the berms and the shorter of the berms?
Hey, hold on real quick. I gotta pull up Google Earth.
It doesn't have to be answered now, but that's a consideration is, if he's got a shorter berm, that might be part of the answer to it. If it's already the tallest of the berms, then obviously it's not working.
And just, I
I
guess,
don't, well, I don't think it's just a berm. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the study would tell us what it really is. I think we can speculate, but I don't think it's just a berm. I mean, I think if it was just a berm, you would have a lot more intrusion of noise than just, it being a berm. I mean, because there's thick forest, there's a landfill. I mean, there's quite a bit at play there.
Thank you.
And I think, and I'm looking at it right now. So, just looking at sight distance from the gun range. Yeah, so the pistol range is almost facing, again, I'm having to play with this. It's almost direct. So the back berm would be closer to his property. Like if you're firing, the back berm of the pistol range would be, that'd be a 22, 24 foot tall berm. The 15-foot side berms would basically be east and west of his,
Yes, sir.
if that makes
Got the
sense.
C&D landfill in between the pistol range and Mr. Manning's house as well.
so just in full comparison, can we review through what the solutions that were proposed in the budget and those costs that we removed when we adopted the budget?
Well, the solutions we had in there originally were really to add so on the two canopies, and if you've been out there, you'll recognize this. So up under the rifle range canopy, there's the Troy acoustic sound paneling. Up under the pistol range canopy, that is not there. We got a quote from Troy Acoustics, and again, that's over a year ago now. So that was, I think, roughly about 110,000 then. And we figured, if we added an eyebrow, and I don't even know if the eyebrow is really going to do anything, but if we were to add an eyebrow to kind of help capture some of that sound coming from the high powered rifles on the rifle range, that could potentially add 90,000, just in extending that canopy out, say an additional 8-10 feet.
Do we know, just from the brief investigations, what we've done, with the sound analysis, person that came out with a few of y'all, do we know if it's coming from the pistols or the rifles?
No, we don't. I mean, we would have to, really kind of stop, any and all traffic on the range. I know whenever we went out to the property to observe, we had probably some of the loudest firearms that you could imagine shooting. We had short barrel 300 blackouts, 338 Lapuas. I mean, if you know anything about firearms, these are super loud firearms, especially if you're standing right there next to them whenever they're being fired. And it was hard to differentiate, much less hear it at that time. And again, wind could have been a factor that day. I'm not trying to dismiss anything. So, but I
Yeah,
know that we had at least 6 or 7 different high powered rifles at the range at that time.
no, that answers my question. I think I was just trying to figure out, exactly if we knew that answer. My initial thoughts looking at this, I'd hate to make a knee-jerk reaction, just throw money at a solution and it not fix the problem. But oftentimes, looking at the cost of this study, I feel like, we often spend sometimes as much money talking about something in government than just doing it. And that's not really the way it is in small business. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this issue. I'd like to spend that money to solve the issue. If this study was a few $1,000s, that might be one thing. But when you're starting to talk about tens of thousands of dollars, that could go really far in making some, noise abatement solutions. So I don't know. I mean, I know the insulation to the pistol range, to the sound, to the roof, because I did shoot a rifle under the rifle canopy without the insulation, and it was a major difference after the insulation was put under it. So personally, I've witnessed, shooting under it with both conditions, and it's a huge improvement. I can't imagine it wouldn't do the same for the pistol. I know we would have to get that updated, but just kind of thinking out loud, if you will, I mean, this study is roughly half the cost of what that would be. So I'd hate to spend a whole bunch of money on a study and then get results that are going to tell us, some of the things we already know.
To Mr. Reddick's very salient point in regards to spending money on a $55,000 to $70,000 study, surely we cannot be the only gun range issue in history. And surely we can look to other entities, government and private, who've been through this same process and have successfully solved the problem, and question whether or not the strategies they employed would be applicable and effective in our situation. There's got to be another rural, semi-rural gun range out there with the same type of surrounding that has been successfully mitigated. I'd rather see us, commit to some research and field trips even, and talking with people who've been successful at solving this than to spend this kind of money on something that's only going to get us, more paperwork and more theories than solutions to the problem.
Was there one in, was it West Georgia, Sean, or Central Georgia? No.
Yeah, so our sister range is over in Thomasville, and they've got, again, acoustical paneling, but they don't have the eyebrows like what we're talking about. I mean, I would say our range is probably designed just as good, if not as good as theirs is. The only difference between ours and theirs is on the ground, they have like rubber padding. It's like some type of rubber tile, that comes in like a 16 by 16 inch square. That's really the only difference between ours. We do have metal columns where they have wood columns, but a metal column is not going to bounce sound off 3 miles. Those are really the only two differences between us and them.
I see 3 areas of approach. One is that we may want to consider limiting the type of weapon. In other words, being very facetious about this, no 105 millimeter howitzers, okay?
And if law enforcement has that need, then perhaps we can work out a limited schedule, a public advertisement that is going to happen and do it only when it's absolutely necessary for public safety. The second thing is, at the point of the weapon itself, to use whatever, some of the things I've seen posted in regard to this are simple as shooting through a series of automobile tires right at the point where the muzzle goes through. So put the target down range, shoot through that, and let that absorb as much sound as it will. And then the third thing is the structure, the eyebrow that you're talking about with the acoustical panels. So that's a three-part thing, and maybe even a fourth part would be additional berms or plantings to sound, to absorb the sound. Without getting too far into the weeds here, those would be considerations I would look at.
And I will say there are quite a few calibers of ammunition that is prohibited. I think, specifically 50 BMG, and Sean could probably name out several others. I don't know if 338 Lapua is prohibited.
No, yeah,
already
so
at our
we,
rate.
we allow up to a 338 Lapua, and those
Okay,
are
so
fine. I
that's-
mean, yeah, and I mean, even then, like a lot of our patrons actually have, either muzzle brakes that may even dampen the sound. Sometimes there are muzzle brakes that actually make the sound a little bit louder just because they want to have an obnoxious gun. But I think I would fear, we have such a limit already on calibers. I think if you start limiting it even more, you're probably going to lose some business, which is only just going to hurt the bottom line of the range even more. So, I mean, I just, I think you might want to give pause to that just a little bit to kind of think about that.
We don't allow tannerite either, even though that has been mentioned on social media, we don't allow that either.
So, I mean, is there, maybe a way they could do a portion of some of the stuff, or maybe like a couple $1,000s or something, or take a decimal reader?
Well,
Or
yeah,
have we
I
already
mean,
done that with the first?
well, so I think, what the company is giving you is to do all three tasks, which is the 55 to 70. I think if we narrowed it down and y'all wanted to just say, let's pick one of those tasks and observe it for a full week, that number will probably go down considerably. I mean, I don't know to what extent, but that's assuming we do all three of those tasks.
Well, we'd have to decide which would be the most effective bang for the buck on those three different components. Well, right now, we got a motion on the floor, a motion and a second. You want to withdraw your motion and make another one?
To me, even though we're still discussing it, well, I went out there, I was there. And we had, I think he said when the wind's coming out of the north, you don't hear it, am I correct?
I believe so.
We would almost have to know that we had a southern wind. All this stuff about temperature and all of that would have to be perfect in order to evaluate this, as far as I'm concerned. If you're gonna do what Sean's talking about here, if you're gonna use this company, then to me, you're gonna have to do almost 24 hours for a little while.
You can do it for a week.
Yeah, you can do it for a week, but I mean, you're gonna, either that or Ricky's just gonna have to pick up the phone and call us and say, it's doing it, come on over. I mean, that's the only other way.
You also got the problem that, he lives out in the country and there's people between him and the gun range that actually go out and shoot as well. Not on the gun range. Not on the gun range, but they're shooting out there.
There's a hunting club.
Yeah,
There-
there's a hunting lodge out there as well.
There was also a comment made on social media on a Tuesday that they said the day before that the gun range noise was awful. Well, the problem with that, talking on a Tuesday, is on Monday, the gun range is closed. So. But anyway, you got a motion and a second on the table. So you want to withdraw it and
Yeah,
do something else, or
I withdraw.
you withdraw your second, whoever made it?
All right, anybody want to make a new motion?
I would like to see us continue to work on this meeting to meeting until we get some traction on it. So I don't want this to be the end of the discussions and it dies and goes away. I think I had used the term continuing discussions, continuing agenda item.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that Ricky keeps talking about is the ecosystem. Yeah, that's way above my head. I couldn't tell you how it would affect it, you know, as far as that goes. I say that we basically continue to talk with Ricky and continue to go out there. You know, that's the reason I called you that day. I tell you, you're right out there with. We didn't hear anything the day we went. We just didn't hear it. And I don't know what to do with it. Unless you hear it, you're there.
Well, that's part of the study. The study will, you know, they'll have the equipment out there. We can have them have the equipment out there for a week. And we'll go from there, you know, if you want to do the study. But for now, you know, I'll make a motion that we give the staff another week to study this and come back and we'll hear it next meeting and see what they say.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Is there a way we could also, you know, include in that, have them research maybe some best practices and some of the things we've talked about, but maybe from some of the other ranges that, you know, might be low hanging fruit that we're just not doing, you know, that might be a solution.
I think the staff can probably do that.
I like.
Yeah.
I've looked
Yeah,
at
and
one-
I think if I may, commissioners, I don't know if y'all can hear. Yeah, I mean, if I may, I mean, so if you want us to, you know, kind of, again, and I've toured so many of these ranges already. I mean, if y'all want us to go back to that drawing board, we will go back around, learn from DNR, learn from these other ranges, what we can possibly do. But again, you know, depending upon what those results are, just know that, you know, that 200,000 was very minimum. I mean, we can do all the sound abatement that we want to in the world and spend $1 million doing it. So I understand what y'all want to do here, but just know that the more sound abatement we do, the higher that number is going to go, and it's going to go considerably higher, depending upon, you know, what we find. And some of these other ranges, they have one thing called no blue sky. Well, no blue sky is not a sound dampener. That is to stop projectiles from leaving the berm. You know, it may assist with sound, but really and truthfully, the intent behind that is not for sound. It's for, you know, to make sure stray bullets do not leave the range. I mean, as far as the canopy goes, it's an outdoor range. The only real way to abate the entire sound is to fully enclose it. And we don't have enough money to do that.
All right, I made a motion that we give staff 2 more weeks to study this. We got a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Kick the can down the road again.
Yep. Never heard a gun range that was solid.
Then you won't. All right, this brings us to calendar, Katie.
There's no changes to the calendar at this time.
Sean, you got any comment?
No, sir. Just appreciate the board, and we'll continue working on some of the gun range options to bring back to you all. You know, I think we can work with the group, the consultant that we got the quote from, to maybe pare down something that I think will probably be, you know, something feasible that we can consider for the future. And even then, if we wanted to do site visits at some of these other ranges, if you know, if a commissioner or two wanted to kind of be a party to that, please let me know and we can kind of help schedule that, just so you can see what some of the ranges look like, where you'll actually be able to put eyes on what they have and compared to what we have. But with that, you know, we've got a big meeting coming up, obviously, with the cities for SPLOST. So don't forget about that. We also have our work session that's coming up Monday at 5:30 p.m. So please don't forget about that. looking forward to everything else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, y'all got a work session Monday,
5:30.
5:30. All right, this brings us to our final public comment section of the night. We're limited to 3 minutes. Anybody registered, Katie? Anybody from the public wish to speak? Come on up, Steve.
Steve Winkle, Harriet's Bluff. The discussion about the gun range is very interesting. Y'all have yet to have discussed the most important issue. It was a good discussion tonight, but from the study, there doesn't seem to be any indication that y'all are concerned about how many rounds are being fired at a time or per day or per hour. It does matter because there's an ambient noise. That's called sound. But when it's a nuisance, it sounds like this happening while I'm trying to talk. While somebody's trying to discuss homework with their child or trying to put their baby to sleep. That's gunfire that's going off despite the fact that you have normal sound, even with somebody speaking. And so if somebody was to do that, you would stop them if you were talking. And so Ricky talked about this earlier tonight. He talked about the difference between noise and sound. Noise is disruptive. Sound is the ambient sound of the room. You've got a money-losing gun range. Money losing. You need more membership. You need more people shooting in order for it to even break even. I saw the budget had 2 people, permanent employees. How many are you going to cut in order to make budget? You have to increase the number of rounds being fired. And you're talking about calibers that you're not allowing. Which are the noisiest calibers, please? The 30-06 noisier than the 338? I don't know. Do you know? How much noisier? How many decibels difference? And so you're not even studying the right thing. You don't know what you're doing, and neither does your consultant. They're just going to give you a report, just like the first report that was filed at the time that you made the decision, the commission made the decision in order to go ahead with the gun range in the first place. I didn't hear anything tonight that's going to solve the problem of gun range noise. That area was quiet before the gun range. And yes, some people went hunting and occasionally would fire or even target practice, but not 6 days a week, year round. And that's what you're asking to happen at the gun range. It's like everybody hunting all around out there 6 days a week, hour after hour after hour. And just like Martin said, depends on which way the wind blows.
Time's up, Steve. Anybody else wish to speak for the board? Come on up.
Bauer from Harriet's Bluff. I've been around gun ranges right in the city of Fort Lauderdale has one that's right in a residential neighborhood. It's a pistol range and they shoot out there probably about 2 or 3 times a week and they don't get no complaints for the simple reason that when they shoot, they're shooting under and into a brim, and they've got an awning, a roof out over the top of it. And they're shooting under there. They don't get no noise outside. Prison down in, well, Eustis, I guess. It's south of Eustis anyway. Prison down there. They got a shooting range in the backyard, and it's right close to a residential neighborhood. But they got berms about this high around the whole thing. And then on top of that, they've got 6-foot wooden fence. Kills the noise. People around there don't complain. Nobody complains. And the Lake County Sheriff's Department's got one, and they've got runs, concrete blocks up about this high, about 10 foot wide, down to a brim. And you can stand there and shoot, and you can't even hardly hear it. Can't hardly hear it. Now that I'm off of that, where's my report for the
Need your emails.
you need my email? What if I don't have an email? What if I don't have a computer?
Give me your address and I'll bring it to you.
I don't want you to bring it to me. Just mail it. 4109 Harriet's Bluff Road. Your light just went off, to tell you the truth. It went yellow.
All right, anybody else wish to speak? All right, seeing none. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
You didn't think nobody would vote?